we're going to let Mike take over the program. And if you want to introduce him, Joanne.
All right, let me find, okay. Oops. Okay, well, welcome, Mike. Mike Bona is the, okay. For over 25 years, he's dedicated his career to caring for exotic animals with a focus on African ungulates, particularly giraffes. He's former president of the Los Angeles chapter of AZA, and he spent 8 years leading initiatives to promote animal welfare and conservation, including organizing successful fundraisers that have supported wildlife projects around the globe. He also created Laughs for Giraffes, an annual stand-up comedy event that combines his passion for conservation with a unique approach to raising awareness and funds for giraffe conservation. He's going to be discussing with us today the Giraffe Conservation Foundation. It's the only organization in the world dedicated solely to the conservation and management of giraffes in the wild across Africa. Operating in over 16 countries, GCF focuses on impactful research, innovative conservation initiatives, and community partnerships to protect giraffe populations and their habitats. Through science-driven strategies and collaborative efforts, GCF works to secure a future where giraffes thrive in the wild. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you very much for that introduction. I'm excited to talk to you guys today. I want to talk about a very special experience I had last year with my most recent trip to Africa, working with the Giraffe Conservation Foundation. I do have a presentation I'm going to try to share with you guys. It's got some really neat photos and videos. And then afterwards, we'll open the floor for questions and discussions. If you have any questions during the presentation, if you can remember them to the end or put them into the chat section, and we'll get to those later. But let's see, because I don't use Zoom very often, if I can successfully get my presentation up.
And Joanne, will you mute everybody so that we aren't interrupted by dogs or kids or family members?
I've just been trying to figure out if there's a way I can do it with one fell swoop, but I don't see a way to do it. I just looked through and it looked like everybody's muted.
Please make sure you're muted.
Thank you. I am not muted, so I apologize if my dogs go off.
No. That's okay.
I don't want you to mute.
Thank you. All right. So can everyone see my title screen? Am I up on the perfect? All right. So I guess Joanne did an excellent introduction, so I have to go into who I am, but I am Mike Bona. I'm a giraffe keeper at the LA Zoo. I've been a zookeeper for about 24 years. I've been working with the giraffes since 2005. Joanne mentioned briefly some of my fundraising efforts. I've been doing an event called Laughs for Giraffes since 2016. I love stand-up comedy, and being in LA with a lot of really great stand-up comics gives me an opportunity to host a big event every year to raise funds for the Giraffe Conservation Foundation. So let's go into giraffes. How many are they species-wise? So currently, the IUCN identifies giraffes as one species of giraffe divided into 9 different subspecies. However, the recent genetic studies done by the Giraffe Conservation Foundation shows there are 4 full species of giraffe. And this is kind of the layout of the different species and subspecies and their geographical location. So those 4 species would include the Maasai, the reticulated, the northern, and the southern. So for this particular project I went and worked on last year, I worked with Angolan giraffe down in Namibia, and the Angolan giraffe is the subspecies of the southern giraffe. And this information is being debated right now with IUCN, and hopefully, we're hoping this year, I didn't realize how long of a process it can take, but hopefully at some point this year, the IUCN will recognize giraffe as 4 species of giraffe, and that will be beneficial to giraffe as a whole because instead of identifying one species of giraffe with over 100,000 individual populations, you could look at the northern giraffe with less than 5,000 individuals and provide them more protection because they would then be considered critically endangered. So this was my trip. For anyone that may be geographically not familiar with Namibia, is on the southwest coast of Africa, just above South Africa and just south of Angola. I wish I could have taken a straight shot like that, but my flight was a lot longer with a layover in Amsterdam. So the Giraffe Conservation Foundation is dedicated to securing the future for all giraffe populations in the wild. They envision a world where giraffes can live in the wild, free within their historical ranges or habitats throughout Africa, and are protected by the people around them. I may be saying GCF a lot throughout this presentation because it's easier, and that's just when I say GCF, I'm referring to the Giraffe Conservation Foundation. So their objectives to ensure a sustainable future for wild giraffe population, and by raising awareness and support for their conservations and habitat in Africa, by supporting the conservation of viable and existing habitat for giraffes, identifying key threats to giraffes, and developing innovative ways to mitigate them, raise awareness and to promote the value of giraffe conservation in Africa range states as well as internationally, plan, develop, implement, and administer projects and programs, including the appointment of project staff, the support of its primary objective, in cooperation with local communities and partner institutions. They want to collaborate with local, national, and international partners on giraffe conservation, and to raise funds for giraffe conservation and management throughout Africa. And this is just a big, broad kind of just picture to kind of show like all the aspects of giraffe conservation that they try to participate in. You can't tackle conservation from one angle. You have to go from several different approaches to secure a future for giraffes. And this is a lot of words. This is just to demonstrate all the countries and all the work they're doing in each country to help secure a future for giraffes. We're currently working in 18 different countries throughout Africa. I love this slide. I mean, they do so much work. There are other giraffe conservation. There are other nonprofits that do giraffe work, but none to the scale as GCF does all throughout Africa. So when I was in Namibia last year, we'll get into my main purpose, but first I got to kind of take a peek at a lot of their programs that they do, and one of them, which I think is really cool, is called the KEEP program, and it's an interactive program that brings Namibian students back to nature. And I got to participate with this by bringing a group of school children out to a national park that borders the city of Windhoek, which is the capital of Namibia. GCF brings between 2,500 and 3,000 primary school students and their teachers to participate in KEEP every year. But KEEP just stands for the Commons Environmental Educational Program. And in total, they have hosted over 14,000 students and 700 teachers for a fun-filled educational day. And it is fun-filled. I had a great time out there with the students, having them learn and educate and about the animals in their community that neighbors them. I mean, even though these students live in Africa, they went out there and got to see animals they've never seen before, including giraffe. Then I went up to a park, Etosha Heights, to participate in a survey. They do giraffe surveys all throughout Africa, and basically a survey allows them to do population monitoring, habitat assessment, threat identification, and conservation planning. And I'll get in briefly to what is entailed with a survey. So they use an application called the Earth Ranger app, which helps conservationists, conserve and conservation and protected area managers collect, track, and visualize data in the field. I participated in my first survey with the Giraffe Conservation Foundation in 2010 in Kenya, and this was all done by hand, writing notes in the notebook. You find a group of giraffe, you get your GPS locations, write that down in the book, the distance the giraffes are to you, write that in the book, the number of giraffes, the sex, if you can sex them, and try to identify the individuals. All that's done like by hand in the book. Now everything's done on an app, and it's so much easier. Doing everything by hand takes up a lot of time and a lot of work. But this app is so easy for data entry, data collection, and just giving you a full picture of giraffes in the area that you're working on. That little bar, the photo at the top of the screen, that's a map of Etosha Heights. And these are the routes that we did on our survey. So each color represents a different day. So I was there for 4 days, and we did each route on each individual day. And that kind of gives us an opportunity to explore the entire park within a week and hopefully see as many giraffes, count and identify them as possible. Real quick, the truck we were driving in, they named her Betty White. Anytime I get an opportunity to take a picture with Betty White, I never turn it down. So that's me and our faithful transporter, Betty White. So this is kind of a picture of what it looks like when you record data. On the right, just a screenshot of the giraffes and the groups and the groups that we've seen during my time there. And then on the left, it's just an example of how we take photos of all the giraffes and how we identify them. Now, each giraffe has a unique spot pattern. So we use the spot patterns to identify the photos we take out in the field with the photos of the giraffes they already have in their catalog to see who we have. There's also a computer program now that can do that using AI. So technology has really advanced a lot when it comes to conservation in the past 10 or 15 years that I've been working there. So the main reason for my trip was to do a translocation. This is something I've always been wanting an opportunity to work on, and this was a very special project that GCF was participating in. And what they were doing is they were transporting a group of giraffes from a park in Namibia up to the country of Angola, which is just north. Now, these are Angolan giraffes. They're named after the country of Angola. That's where they're natively from. However, they've been mostly extinct in that country for decades, mostly due to like civil war, civil unrest in the country. And whenever there's any like civil unrest in a country, if there's like a war-torn country, giraffes are often poached and hunted. It's little effort for a lot of meat that can feed a lot of people that are out in the fields trying to just survive. So currently, however, the environmental and the political climate in Namibia has stabilized to the point where they believe they can actually successfully have giraffe thrive in the country there. So this is reintroducing a population that was previously extinct back into Angolan. So I was really excited to be able to participate in this project. So I want to show a quick video here that kind of shows what the process of what it takes to move a giraffe from one country to another.
Can everybody hear the video?
No.
We're having an audio issue.
Okay, we're having an audio issue. Can you hear me while the video talks or the video plays? Can you hear me while the video plays?
Yes, we can hear
Okay.
you, but we don't hear anything on the video.
All right. Then I just will play the video on silent and talk over it. But basically, at the beginning, I was in front of a boma where we herded 13 giraffes into the boma using the helicopter. And then I'll just give you a quick description. So these giraffes get herded from the boma and funneled into a chute where we place GPS trackers onto their ears. They get loaded up into a truck and then transported up to the Iona National Park in the south border of Angola and then released. Oh, let me go back. So we'll just start again real quick if I can. All right. So that's the boma behind me. It's a short video. So 800 miles is how far they traveled. So these are still shots of the transportation, and then this is the release into Angola.
Oh, God.
Isn't that beautiful imagery?
Mhm. Oh,
And this is significant event for the country of Angola. This is the president of Angola who was there during the release of the giraffes. So that is my presentation. Thank you. And there's a handful of people that made it happen. I was able to participate in this program because of a grant provided by Diane Montgomery, who is a trustee of the LA Zoo, and the Greater Los Angeles Zoo Association, Julian Fennessy, who is the president of GCF, and thanks to my family who allowed me to leave them for a couple of weeks to go play in the sandbox in Angola. So, all right. So, I guess I'll open up the floor to questions.
I know how to do that.
Actually, real quick, I do have some props here. This is a one of the GPS trackers that we attach to their ears. You can see how small it is. It's really unnoticeable to them. And they're solar powered and they can track these giraffes for a few years just on one of these devices. And this has evolved significantly throughout the past few decades. The GPS trackers they used to place on giraffes were these huge like straps that they go across their body, and there's a battery pack attached to their back, and then they evolved to a head unit, to like a solar powered like box unit that they attach their ossicones to. Just these are what they use in cattle in a lot of places. And then one more thing, going back to the KEEP program where they took the kids out to the field, they each get an activity book.
Oh,
And in this, they have games, show a little bit, coloring books, interactive, like what are the threats to giraffe? They have information on invasive species, what they can do to, here's the little thing on ecosystems, what the kids can do to help protect the animals around them and conserve the nature. And, it's got a lot of neat information on it.
Mike, we had a question in the chat that said, are the 4 different species easily differentiated?
Yeah.
Yes and no. They do have, in general, each have a different type of spot pattern. And they have a different geographical location where they're located. However, that's not always that reliable. The most reliable determination of what species a giraffe is in their DNA. The GCF just a month or two ago released a study where they showed that you could they did a study doing like 3D imagery of like 550 different giraffe skulls, and they can identify the individual populations just on the shape of the skulls. They have different morphology in their skull structure by the species. But what's unique, the one country that has like Kenya has reticulated and Maasai giraffe in some areas where they kind of share similar habitat. However, they seem to recognize the difference between the species because there's really no cases of hybridization of those giraffes in that area, even where they share territory.
there's another question in chat. Is the habitat in Angola noticeably different from where they were living before?
You saw that image of them running, in their new habitat with the mountains and kind of that grass. It is different, but in a positive way. There's more vegetation. It's still kind of a deserty environment, but Angola is very deserty. In fact, I don't know how anything really survives there, especially something the size of a giraffe. They're amazing how they can adapt to really extreme conditions, from high heat to even like really cold climates. There's giraffes in South Africa that live in areas where it can snow sometimes. And then there's parts in Namibia where you can look out and it just looks like an alien planet. There's like no vegetation. Um, a lot of the areas where the giraffes live in Namibia, they have these dried water beds with a water source underneath, and that's where riverbeds, and that's where the giraffes thrive. Is there's a lot of plants and vegetation that feed off the underground water source. Where do they play? Okay, I can see the questions. Was the move to Angola successful? Have the giraffes acclimated themselves? Yes, actually, I was just at a conference this past week in Palm Springs. There was a conference for giraffe professionals throughout the country and the world, and one of them was Michael Brown, who is a member who works in Namibia with GCF. And I asked them, what's the update on the giraffes? He said um, they're all thriving, they're all doing good. They've been tracking them. Um, they are their goal is sometimes it's hard to really um, select what giraffes you want to transport, but they aim for younger giraffes, like not young giraffes that are still dependent on their parents, but not older giraffes. They're kind of like teenage age, like 2, 3, 4. So because they can recover from stress a lot easier. So it may take a while before these giraffes are able to reproduce, but they have had successful translocations in other countries where those populations are thriving and reproducing. So that's what they hope and expect with this group. Rothschild's giraffes. So when the GCF did their genetic kind of redefining of giraffes, it was shown that Rothschild giraffes were genetically identical to the Nubian giraffe, which are both part of the northern giraffe species. So since the Nubian giraffe was identified first, they now classified all the Rothschild giraffes as Nubian giraffes. The same was true with the Maasai giraffe and the Thornycroft giraffe. They're all Maasai giraffe.
Oh,
So what effects did your visit to Africa have on working with zoo giraffe? Well, as far as managing my giraffe population, it's not a lot of difference because managing giraffes like in the wild and in a zoo setting is a lot different. I can kind of take away like on the different browse that they eat in the wild and see if I can replicate not only what they eat but how they eat it. And but having this like firsthand information on and experience with conservation, be able to share that experience with the public and the visitors of the zoo, and hopefully help inspire someone to want to get involved with giraffe conservation and help support or learn more or go to the GCF website. This experience really kind of aids in that effort to kind of just inspire people to get excited about giraffe conservation.
We skipped over a question that says, does Angola have a national animal? If not, maybe giving giraffes that designation would be helpful. And did the government of Angola assist financially or otherwise in this endeavor?
The last part, yes, the country did assist in the translocation. They were very involved. That's one of the goals of GCF when they do projects like this, whatever country they're in, they want full involvement and cooperation with the government, because without support from the government, you're really not going to have any success with any of your projects. So they do have that in Angola. The first part of the question, I don't know. I don't know if they have a national animal. I'm going to Google that right now. Angola national. Well, it's the giant sable antelope.
Oh,
oh,
That's a beautiful antelope. Kind of hard to say no to that.
you God.
Let's see. What triggered the move of the giraffes? So the move of the giraffes, when they weren't, no, they're thriving in Namibia. Namibia is one of the few countries where giraffe population are actually growing. Um, the where we got the giraffes is on a protected like park reserve where sometimes because it's large but it's all enclosed, so sometimes the population get too big for a certain area reserve. So that's why that particular spot was selected for the collection of the giraffes that we moved up to Angola. Let me go back down. Mr. Raj. Does AZA currently recognize the GCF classification? I haven't heard any official statements or from AZA about how they recognize giraffes. I think they still go along with ICN acceptance. But depending on who you talk individually, it varies. I think the next question would be for Joanne, if you guys can view this recording again. Oh, you already answered. All right. How many giraffes are translated? There's 13 giraffes, and this is actually in addition to a group of giraffes that they transported the year before. So right now, there is, I think they did 12 the year before, so there's about 23, 24 giraffes in Angola. So these are some great questions.
I think he was.
Do we,
All right.
do we have any more questions for Mike? Because I know he just got back from his conference and probably has a lot to do before he has to start back to work on Monday. But Mike, can you either, excuse me, put in the chat or let us know if any of our members are interested in donating to the Conservation Foundation? How would they go about doing that?
Yes, that is giraffeconservation.org. And let me spell that right. Conservation.org. There is a donation page. If you're, I totally recommend and encourage anyone to make a donation. However, I will specify if you make a donation, they have a page where you can select donate. Check to make sure you're doing a one-time donation, because I think it defaults to like monthly or annual, which if you want to donate monthly or annual, I totally support, but just check on that. They also have opportunities where you can adopt a giraffe
Oh,
out in one of their study areas, and they'll email you and send you pictures and updates on the giraffe you adopted. And if you're anyone's in the LA area, you can always look for my Last for Giraffes comedy shows. I usually try to schedule them around World Giraffe Day, which is June 21st, but sometimes they end up being at random parts of the year. And if you're on Instagram, I have a page called Laughs for Giraffes that will give you any updates on when shows are.
Great.
All right. And if I can do one more shameless plug, I started a podcast recently called Wild Tales, and basically it's a storytelling podcast where I have guests come on and tell animal stories. It's Wild Tales, Tails, so it's a pun. And one of my episodes, I do talk to Julian Fennessy, who is the president of GCF.
So we had two more questions. Is there enough genetic diversity to sustain a healthy population in the translocated giraffe?
Yes,
And do you tape your shows?
I do not tape my shows.
oh,
So easy answers, yes and no. Okay.
Okay, well, we thank you for joining us today. Joanne, do you want to add anything else?
mhm.
Just thank you very
Okay.
much for joining us. And this was great information. After we read the book West with Giraffes, and a whole different way of transporting giraffes across the ocean and then by truck across the United States in 1938. So it's nice to see the modern technology herding them with helicopters and carrying them by trucks.
Yeah, and actually, our helicopter pilot was just incredible how he was able to basically direct the giraffes that he wanted into the boma. He's got a lot of experience with that, because you kind of had to like filter out, like I said, the older ones and the babies.
Right.
There was, of the giraffes that he herded into the boma, I think there was one that we released because we determined it was too young.
Mhm. That's good.
Oh, how long do the transmitters last?
On the little battery they have and the solar power, about 2 to 3 years.
Okay.
Oh, okay. That's good.
Well, thank thank you very much, Mike, for joining us. We really appreciate you taking your time. This is part of our board challenge to create more educational opportunities for our members of AZAD. And so this is our one of our first Zooms of the year, and we will be trying to have additional educational opportunities for our members. So those of you who are new, we want to thank you for joining us. And if you are interested in the book club, if you can email Joanne at AZAD Professional Development or AZADV Professional Development at gmail.com, we'll make sure you get all of our updates. So thank you for joining us today, and I hope you enjoyed this educational opportunity.
I did. It was very good.
And thanks again, Mike.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Bye.